and welcome to Falklands in Focus. I'm Liz Roberts. Coming up on the programme, we take a look at the journey of the Jellum in her final days, and the Cubs and Scouts are delighted with their new gift. Falkland Islands government announced this week that the Jellum is to be removed. It is said that the floating debris over the last few months presents a significant risk to harbour users. In 2008, at the time that the bow collapsed, approval was granted for the removal of the remains of the wreck. However, due to potential safety concerns, the stern remained in situ. A decision has now been made to proceed with the remaining removal works. Martech Limited have begun to remove parts of the Jellum this week.
There has been feelings more almost of sadness, because you're right, I mean, I've grown up with the Jellum's always been there, and it is part of our lives, and it is sad when these old boats go, but I'm afraid, like all of us, you know, they have a life, and the Gribble and Toledo worms done the damage to it, and the weather's not helping. So I'm afraid, you know, she is obviously the first, but I think there's going to be others in the future, because looking around some of the wrecks here in Stanley and indeed in the camp, some of the photographs I've seen, they all seem to be reaching the end of their lives now, which is, it's going to be terribly sad, but it's just one of these things, I'm afraid.
There was a significant failure of the structure in sort of August, September of last year, and things haven't really, things are quite possibly starting to speed up now, and we've had another series of wind. We've also had more pieces floating off, and we started getting regular reports from members of the public that there was all sorts of bits of wood, some of them small and some of them large, with nails and bolts and whatever sticking out of them, and there is a very real risk for smaller vessels, particularly yachts and cruise ship tenders who come into the harbour. So it's now got to a stage that the sort of failure of it has meant that it's more manageable than what it was when the first attempt was made in 2009. We thought the time was right at the end of last year, a few weeks ago, that now was the time for it to happen.
Well, Jellum was built in 1849 in Liverpool, and she was a general run-of-the-mill cargo ship for many years, and she came in here in 1870. And at that time she had a cargo of guano from the west coast of South America, from KIA, going to Dunkirk. And guano was quite valuable stuff. Actually, it's bird droppings which build up in vast quantities on these islands in South America, and it's used as fertiliser. The only snag is that it's perfectly okay as long as it's dry. When it gets wet, especially with seawater, it sets like cement. And that's what happened when Jellum was sort of in these latitudes. And the captain brought her in a waterlogged, sinking condition. The crew refused to put to sea in her again, and the upshot was she was condemned, sold as a hulk, and she's remained here ever since. But she's always been part of the scenery. For years after being condemned, she was afloat, and then Captain Pack bought her, and he brought her up to this end of the harbour, scuttled her and built a jetty out. She was his warehouse for many years, and my first contact with her was in 1957, a terribly long time ago, when she was used as a store for aviation fuel and petrol. And I was working that time with the Shackleton, and we were getting drums of fuel to take down south for the aircraft. And I remember it was a wonderful sunny morning. We came up here, wandered up the jetty, and there she was, this great inflammable mass full of petrol in a wooden ship. Now, health and safety would have to fit nowadays. And I thought then, well, it's remarkable to find a ship like this in this part of the world virtually intact. And I've sort of remained attached or interested in her ever since.
If you have something like this that's been here for obviously most people, everybody's lifetimes, then if you're be used with a structure like this, it can become pretty iconic in lots of people's minds. And if you're going to start taking that away, it is something that people do have to get used to. But I think most people would agree now that the present state of the Jellum, it's not really something that you may want to take a photo of anymore, and it just looks like a bit of a nothing more than a sad heap in a way.
She was always a jolly good subject for photographs and paintings, but I started a painting 2 or 3 years ago and I finished it off over the Christmas, little realising that this will be the sort of complete demise of Jhelum.
The poor old Jhelum, perhaps if they could have got, say, the bow section out some years ago, yes, you might have been able to do something with it, but again, I think when you get these things on shore, if you don't treat them, they will eventually just crumble away though. But I mean, the costs involved, I think, would be pretty prohibitive too.
There is a plan to set aside any sort of usable bits, and the rest will basically be sent to the quarry. But hopefully, we'll get as much as what people might want to get from it. But it's easy to underestimate the actual scale of the job as far as bits of wood's concerned, because of course it was a sea-going ship. And although there's not all that much of it left, there's still quite a significant quantity of wood to handle in the next week or 3.
We could have had one of the best tourist attractions in the world with our collection of hulks, and 30 years ago, even longer, there were moves afoot to save the Jhelum, save the hulks, but at that time we had not enough money, not enough labour, and really the same might apply today. Because the next big concern is going to be the Lady Elizabeth. Why don't we save the Lady Elizabeth? But again, we just haven't got the labour. We might have the money, but imagine the labour it would take to do anything with it. And then you've got the dreaded health and safety lurking in the background, who'd want vast amounts of money spent on making it safe. So sentiment's got to give way to reality, sadly, and we've just got to accept the consequences.
From secret tapes to stranded vessels, Hannah Smithson is here now with our monthly roundup in What the World's Saying.
Argentina have announced their first ever Secretariat for matters relating to the Falkland Islands this week. Argentine former Senator Daniel Filmus was inaugurated on Monday the 6th of January as the new head of the Secretariat of the Falklands, South Georgia, South Sandwich Islands and adjoining maritime spaces in the South Atlantic affairs. The Secretariat intends to press forward on its claims to the Falklands. The Honourable Mike Summers MLA responded and said that this was not an unexpected move from Argentina, as it is constantly trying to find ways to raise the profile of its claims to the islands. MLA Summers said the Argentine government refuses to discuss any issues about practical cooperation in the Southwest Atlantic with the government in the Falklands. He said having a new secretariat won't change that, only a change of direction and attitude will change those things. Tory MPs were furious this month over Britain's decision to continue to send aid to Argentina, despite their clear continued claim to the Falklands to mark their 181st anniversary this new year. There was a strong reaction from MPs this week when it was revealed that the UK contributes several £1 million in aid programmes to Argentina. MP Ian Liddell-Granger said it is an embarrassment for Prime Minister David Cameron, who only last month was accusing Argentina of shameful attempts to bully the islands in his Christmas message to the Falklands. On Christmas Day, a Russian research ship and Chinese icebreaker became trapped among Antarctic ice and has only this week been broken free with the help of the US Coast Guard. The US ship, the Polar Star, is responding to a request for assistance from Australian authorities, as well as from the Russian and Chinese governments, it is said in a statement. The Chinese icebreaker also became stuck in the Antarctic over the Christmas period after attempting to help free the Russian ship from the ice, but did manage to helicopter 52 passengers from the stranded ship to an Australian vessel on New Year's Day. The Russian ship's captain said a change in wind direction caused a crack in the ice, which has aided their rescue. A new study of 4 Antarctic emperor penguin colonies suggests that unexpected breeding behaviours may be a sign that the birds are adapting to environmental change. Scientists from the British Antarctic Survey revealed that penguin colonies moved from their traditional breeding grounds during years when the ice shelves formed later than usual, after the penguins' natural breeding season forced the penguins to move up onto neighbouring ice shelves to raise their young. Recent concern about changing sea ice patterns has led experts to designate emperor penguins as a near-threatened species by the IUCN Red List. Archive files released last week revealed a fake tape of Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher arguing over the Falklands War, had the British Secret Service scrambling to identify the culprits. The tape, supposedly a telephone recording of former US President Reagan and the British Prime Minister, was anonymously sent to several Dutch newspapers during the 1983 UK general election and detailed a heated conversation between the leaders. The British punk rock band Crass later admitted to making the tape, only after the CIA and Britain's MI6 had sought to establish whether the Soviet Union or Argentina was behind it. The papers have been declassified after 30 years in the UK National Archives. And that's it for What's the World Saying?
A new working group has been set up to decide Cape Pembroke's future. The group, made up of representatives from different sectors of the community, met for the first time before Christmas to help plan for the future of the area and discussed issues such as the spoil site at Merry Hill and the possibility of developing a road up to the lighthouse. We spoke to Nick Rendell, Environmental Planning Officer, about the group's vision document and future work.
We had 14 people come along to the meeting in December, the first meeting of the working group, representing dog walkers, people interested in wildlife and nature there, plant specialists, small birds, and I should say horse grazers as well, and several horse owners. Probably the one group we didn't get representation from was off-road drivers. And the area is accessible to 4x4s, etc. And it would be good to get some representation from 4x4 owners, perhaps. That's probably the only group that we would encourage to get involved.
One of the issues I think that was mentioned was the building a road to the lighthouse so people can really go and appreciate that area. Would that kind of help with some of the issues of off-road drivers in the area?
That's the intention, yes. Or certainly the majority. There's a few people who are opposed to a road at all who came along, but probably the majority thought that a good solution to off-road, the impact of off-road driving would be to put a all-year track into the lighthouse so that there's a designated route which everyone can follow. Obviously at the moment there's a track part of the way. You get about halfway down, and then there's a plethora of different routes to get to the end of the peninsula, with impact on sand dunes and the terrain there, particularly in the winter when it's wet. You can get very wet down there. So that's an obvious solution, is to put a road in to the fence just before the lighthouse to allow improved access and to have a designated route. And then whether or not legislation is required to stop people going off that road can be decided on later. Certainly with the Gypsy Cove Road that was built in the 1990s, there's been no need to legislate because the vast majority of people use that road. Some people like to take different routes, but the impact is much reduced, and hopefully the same would be if we were able to pursue a road to the lighthouse. We should say that that's early stages in terms of looking at costings for that, and that's something that I've been tasked to do, is go away, talk to Public Works about costings and different phases, a phased approach, and how we might achieve that. And then we would require some resources from somewhere if the group agrees that that is the way forward. As part of the working group, we formed a breakout group whose task is to go away, a group of 4 people led by Hay Miller, has kindly agreed to share that group, and she is with the other members of the group. They're going to go away and start to put together a vision document which we'll bring back to the wider group, and that document will sort of put down what the working group wants Cape Pembroke to be. Certainly the intention is to retain the area as a recreational and amenity area for the community. It is part of the common at the moment, and anyone has the right to access that area, and there's no intention to remove that. It's there for the people of the Falkland Islands and visitors, tourists to enjoy. But it's just getting the balance right so that some people's activities don't damage you know, the nature, the wildlife, etc. But that's found there. We welcome anyone who is interested in the management of Cape Pembroke.
Coming up after the break, the Scouts are given some new camping gear courtesy of the Scots Scouts and Families Association, and we gear up for the annual raft race. Let's see you soon.
Seductive, elegant and dry, with an intense cherry pink colour. It has spiciness and hints of strawberry, rose and orange peel. Monty's Wines at Stanley Services.
Good morning. Are you aware that certain foodstuffs brought into the Falkland Islands require an import permit?
No, I wasn't aware of that.
What are you carrying?
Potatoes.
Do you have an import permit?
No.
I'm afraid potatoes are prohibited and can't be brought in without an import permit. Can I have a look in your bag, please?
Some fruit and products of animal origin can be imported without an import permit.
I'm afraid these are going to have to be destroyed.
For more information, call Biosecurity Services at the Department of Agriculture on 27355 or email biosecurity@doa.gov.fk for the current import regulations. Biosecurity, protecting our future.
Welcome back. Falklands Cubs and Scouts Group have been awarded with 5 tents from the families and veterans of the Scots Guard as a thanks for their continuing efforts to maintain the memorial monument. FITV headed to Mount Tumbledown to join the group as they met 3 members of the Tumbledown Veterans and Families Association for a ceremony to remember the efforts during the conflict.
It was an emotional return for the 2 Scots Guards veterans and the brother of one of the fallen soldiers as they trekked through the ditches and mounds of Mount Tumbledown, where the pivotal battle took place just 30 years previously. It was the first time that Jim Peters and Vince Campbell from the 2nd Battalion have returned to the Falklands to help piece together memories of the battle and seek personal closure. For Andy Malcolmson, he sought to find peace from seeking out the place where his brother David tragically died just less than an hour before the surrender.
It's going to be very emotional again today later on, but in saying that, it's been very invigorating. You can feel the spirits of these guys here with us. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
I love it.
You can. It's absolutely brilliant coming back, you know, especially for me being a family member, to remember my brother David, you know. I mean, it's can't put it into words, to be honest with you. I met other guys he was with, and I met Vince. David died in his arms and things like that, and it helps the family because we didn't know what happened. We couldn't get any details, and somebody had to come back for the family to the place where he died. So we're going to get round about the battlefield today.
The reason I came out here was to maybe help towards closure of post-traumatic stress, but to be perfectly honest, I think nothing at the moment, except it's very emotional for me to be here.
Every year, the Cub and Scout group ascend the mountain to pay their respects on the 13th of June, the date when the Scots Guard launched their assault on the Argentinian troops based on Mount Tumbledown. Cub and Beaver Scout leader Jan Miller takes the group up to Tumbledown each year to polish the cross, lay a wreath and pay their respects, in the hope of helping the younger generation to remember the sacrifice of the Scots Guards.
I take the Cubs because I'm thinking that if I do something for them now, in 20 years' time they'll do that with their children, and then it'll go on and it'll be remembered. And the Scots Guards also appreciate that the youngsters of today are still looking after their comrades, so they're quite pleased with us as well. I've got a lot of friends who are Scots Guards and families of the Scots Guards who were killed here on Facebook. I put some pictures up, and so many of them saw it and appreciated what the kids are doing for them, that they asked if they could give us something, and I didn't really know what they wanted, so I thought maybe a saucepan for cooking with camp and things, and they said, oh, we can do better than that. And I said, well, would you like a donation for towards a tent or something like that? And they said, how much does a tent cost? And I said, about £120, something like that. And they said, oh, we'll buy you 5. So we were so overwhelmed with that they wanted to do that for us. And this is the first opportunity we've got. We wanted to come up here, pitch the tents, and just show them how much we appreciate it. So.
The Cub and Scout group walked the mountains to meet the visitors, as well as thanking them for the donation of 5 weather-resistant tents from the Tumbledown Veterans and Families Association, which were given to reward the efforts of the Cubs and Scouts to prevent the memorial from deteriorating. Jim, Vince and Andy carried a blessed standard with them, bearing the names of the 9 Scots Guards who had died during the Falklands conflict, as a final mark of respect and a way of helping the families of those who died to feel closer to the deceased.
We all understand, by touring various other battlefields, exactly what state these things would be in if you lot didn't do what you do up here on a regular basis. You believe me when me tell you, there's not a day goes by, not one day when we don't think of this. And now that we've understood who you people are, you wee lassies and laddies, you're in my thoughts every day. So keep, it sounds to be a bit theatrical, but it's true. We've all got wee bits in a rock and stuff in the houses, and we think about it every day. So keep up the good work, and remember that all your wee faces will be all over the world and all over the regiments and all over the British Army by the end of close of play tonight, and they'll all know who you are. So thanks very much on behalf of all those who can only be here today. The 9 guys that died here, and there's about 300 Scots Guardsmen that have died since the campaign. Now you remember that when you come up here and you clean this, they'll be with you in spirit. They will be. They'll be here and they'll be very proud and very grateful for what you're doing. You've got our thanks personally.
Before the remembrance ceremony, a few of the children went to thank the veterans for fighting to save their homeland that they would otherwise not have known.
Just a little while ago, you 3 went to speak to the veterans, didn't you? What did you go and say to them?
Thank them for the tents. Thanks for them saving us from the war. Risking their lives for us. Yeah.
You all come up here every year on June the 13th, don't you? You all take the big walk.
Yeah.
Why do you come and take the big walk up here?
Because we like for the army people to pay our respect to them.
Do you clean the grave? If any rubbish?
Yeah. We pick up all the rubbish that we could ever find. Yeah. And like put it somewhere, maybe in a bin if we can find any, or so we'll take it back. Put it in a bag and take it down to a bin that you can find. Yeah. Well, they give up our lives for us, and we come up here to clean, like to make sure they're all right and everything.
Despite 3 decades passing since the conflict, it's clear from the ceremony that these children will continue to honour the sacrifice of 2nd Battalion Scots Guards by preserving the memorial itself and visiting the monument annually to pay their respect.
The annual raft race, traditionally held on New Year's Day, has been postponed this year and is set to take place this Sunday, the 12th of January at midday. If you have built a raft and would like to register, please call John Clifford on 51111. Cub Scouts will be collecting on the day, with monies raised this year going to the Memorial Wood Fund. The next session of the Legislative Assembly will take place at 9 a.m. on Friday the 31st of January in the Court and Assembly Chambers Town Hall. All persons wishing to attend should be seated by 10 to 9. And that's it for this edition of Falklands in Focus. If you'd like to contact the show, you can call us on 22649 or email info@fitv.co.fk. For updates, news and teasers from your FITV team, you can like our Facebook page, FITV Falkland Islands, or follow us on Twitter @Falklands TV. And don't forget, you can also visit our website on www.fitv.co.fk. DVDs of the programme will be on sale from Monday from the Pod, Malvina House Hotel, Stanley Services Shop, the West Store, or you can call in and see us at the studio. That's it from us. We'll see you on Tuesday.